Hey, what's good, everybody? It's Leonidas here, and I am coming to you today with a video of me talking about Scream and drawing a picture of Ghostface. Um, I'm gonna talk about it for a little bit, and then after so long, I'll just let the rest of me draw and be the rest of the video. I won't say much of anything after that, but I figure I would just discuss why I decided to pick Scream as my subject for art today. Um, well, first off, it's October. You know, Happy Halloween, you know. So I figured this would be one of the few videos I do for the month where I draw something from a horror movie that I really enjoy and just talk about what I like about it. If you like Scream, you don't like Scream, or maybe you've seen people talk about the movies. Maybe give it a shot to watch, whether it's the first three, the last three. I personally prefer the original trilogy over anything of the new ones. Not that they're not good. It's just you gotta like classics. That's my type of shit. So I am just doodling away on there. But anyways, let's get into it. So my thing that I've really enjoyed about Scream is the severity of the reality that is the story. It's not a mystical guy in a hockey mask. It's not a dream demon. It's not a possessed doll. It's just a dude who's had enough of something happening to him. He snaps. He gets his dumb friend in, or dumb lover, and they do some dumb shit to these people who have quote unquote wronged them. And I just enjoy that. I think it's neat to have a story that you can essentially be like, that could happen. That's terrifying because, yeah, it's silly in concept and seeing it get enacted, but that could happen. Somebody could just be like, I've had enough. You follow Sid, Tatum, Billy, Stu, Randy, and barely any of Dewey or Gale. Gale and Dewey don't really become more prominent until you get into the second movie. And I think they all do a phenomenal job of, especially if it's your first watch and you don't really see much of this, like if you're watching this when it first came out, it does a really good job of throwing who could it be? Is it Dewey? Is it Billy? Is it Stu? Like you got a good hunch. They give you a really big bones hand there, but I think it does a really solid job of just throwing it off of, oh, who is this? Could it be the crazed, film buff? Is it the creepy boyfriend who's like, I was watching The Exorcist and it made me think of you, so I hopped over here. Uh, I feel like you're less inclined to think that it's Stu because he's like, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm just hanging out type shit. So I think it just does that really good job of being like, you don't know who somebody is until they really show you their true colors behind closed doors, you know? And I also really enjoyed the fact that they're playing on tropes. Randy knows everything. He's a horror movie guy. You know, don't say I'll be back because you're not gonna be. Watch your surroundings. Of course, it's always a psycho boyfriend. Stuff like that. I like the callbacks to other horror movies. Uh, Wes Craven being the janitor and the Freddy sweater. Even the Exorcist line I just brought up. The fact that they're watching Halloween at the party, and the fact that the party happens is because it's so stupid. But for a fact, teenagers would be like, "That's a good idea." So I don't know. I just think that shit's kind of funny, but scary. I mean, kids are dumb enough to have a party while there's a murder on the loose, and a murderer is going to take advantage of that, especially when that murderer is one of your peers. So, yeah, I think it's fucked that I'm pretty sure Billy was the one that nixed out Tatum because he's just like, nah, my man's can't have no bitch. So I gotta kill his bitch so I can have my man's after I kill my bitch. Cause I know for a fact Billy and Stu playing cornhole. And that's alright. But it was the 90s, so they had to really make it inconspicuous. I feel like if they would have just been flat out with it back in the time that it came out, it would have been not so fly. So, yeah, that's why I really like the first movie. The second movie, Sid's now in college. She's trying to get past everything that happened in the first event of the movie. Uh, People are harassing her, you know, prank calling her, just, what's your favorite scary movie? Just because the stab movie is coming out. And she's just over it. You can tell by the way she rolls her eyes and be like, I'm going to call campus security. You keep this shit up. And he's just like, oh. just fully caught off guard by the her just being so ready for this dude. And the twist of it being Billy's estranged mom who left because Daddy got some coochie from Sydney's mom. I think that's a nice twist. But I don't think it is the most surprising twist, seeing how as when Billy is mentioned by Randy, that's when Randy dies. Like that is like a giveaway in some I don't want to say regard, respect, some light. I don't know that it's somebody related to Billy in some sense or another. So it being his mom, and that being the reason he went on his little tirade in the first movie, I think is a nice like full circle moment. Mickey, I don't know. Even before he got outed as one of the killers, I just Timothy Olyphant does really good at playing a character you just want to fucking punch in the teeth. You know what I mean? Like I remember being a kid and watching the movie and be like, I want to hit him. Like I don't know. There's just something that made me just go, man, screw this dude. Like, Mickey, the Tarantino film student. I don't know. I was always on Randy's side. I always enjoyed Randy. Jamie Kennedy made me laugh. So that's what it is of that. I also enjoyed that Sydney is now trying her best to not let things from the first movie hold her back. She's trying to be a regular, teenager into adulthood, going into college, and it's hard, to try and get past these mental blocks. When she's at the theater practicing for the play, and she can see like just Ghostface mask in there, and she gets all freaked out, and just her mind's playing tricks on her essentially. And I think that's cool to see and explore because some people they would make them extra badass, like nothing's gonna happen. But if this were to happen to you in the first movie, you would be messed up. So I think it is nice that they have shown that it's just not all peaches and rainbows. After something horrific happens, they're just like, nah, this is it. This is bad. Like, she's in a bad place. And the way she struggles with trusting her boyfriend because her last one was a little crazy. Um, the whole I enjoyed when Derek gets dropped down from the star because his frat buddies throw him up there, and Mickey plays it off and then just shoots him. I'm just like, damn, you didn't even let bro get in a word edgewise. You know, Mickey knew it was cooked the moment. He just like, I'll fucking kill you, and he just bop 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 and pops one right into him. I don't know. But yeah, so I mean that's essentially why I like the second one. And then also I'll add that Gail and Dewey have their thing going on. Dewey's trying to be a protector of Sid, respectfully. That's sweet of Dewey. Dewdrop, dewdrop. So I like that. I like seeing their little romance blossom. I'm a sucker for slight romance. Who can help it? Not I. So I enjoy that as well. And then Scream 3, damn, that was the one that had the turn. And actually, I'm gonna say Scream 3 is probably my favorite out of all three of them, but it just so happens to be the one that I probably watched the most growing up. The one thing that I liked from 3 was the music, the fact that they had like Creed playing What If. Like I love that so much. It's such a banger of a song. Cause hell yeah, for divorced dad rock, this shit slaps for real. And the fact that the thing I didn't talk about in the last two is the fact that Cotton Weary is in, the beginning part of this. He's in two, he's referred to in one, and I really enjoy Cotton in the beginning of three because I just think it's funny how he's out and about, he's free, he's no longer in prison. He's just like, yeah, yeah, and I like how he was just so down for like someone he didn't even know just because their voice sounded attractive. He's like, I don't know, like maybe we could, ooh, ooh, type shit. I'm just like, all right. And if you think about it, what's funny is him being a horn dog like that in that moment is the exact reason why he got in trouble in the first place. You know, because think if it wasn't for his actions of, fooling around so much, whether it's with a married woman or on somebody while he's with somebody, he wouldn't have ended up as a suspect. And I just think that's a funny thing for him to have as a personality trait. Is just a low key like horn dog. You know, I'm just like, all right, man, whatever you got to do. Not that him flirting with Ghostface over the phone was the reason he was gonna die, anyways. You know, Ghostface is just trying to get information out of him, like, "Where's Sydney? I need her." And he's just like, "Yo, I ain't, I ain't gonna do that, bro. Like, sorry." And I respect Con for that. Like, he's just like, "No, I'm not gonna tell you. Like, eat one for real, dude." So that's one thing I always liked about Cotton is like, yeah, might have been a horror dog, might have been a little bit of a cheat because you know he was willing, but he's real. I mean, like, I respect the fact he's just like, I ain't gonna like let you know where she's at. I know what kind of evil you're about, bro. You're as bad as the last people who did this shit. So I just really enjoy that aspect of Con. I also like that there's only one serial killer in this, even though I have heard that there should have been two. It was the girl who's gonna play Sydney, but it got cut. I don't care. I like that it's just Roman. I just like that he's just like, no, I'm the orchestrator. It was me. You shouldn't have like, you shouldn't have had a good life. You shouldn't have had my mom because it's our mom, and she should have loved me, and it's your fault that she didn't love me. And I'm just like, all right, man. I don't know. I just like that. I also like the fact that it's in Hollywood because there's you get the interesting scenes of like Ghostface blending in with all the other Ghostface costumes when he's typing up the script, telling them what's gonna happen next. I feel like that should have been the giveaway that it was Roman. I like that Roman explained like it's it's our mom, all right, long lost brother. Like she's like this because Hollywood did her dirty. You know, she went to one of those Hollywood parties that actresses would go to back in the day to get better parts by doing some unfavorable, favorable things. And which was my key indicator to know that this is a true work of fiction because nobody in Hollywood has ever done anything like that to try and get people to have parts. Like, that's just crazy. I know nothing like that would ever happen in Hollywood. No, sir. That's how I know the shit's a real work of fiction. Trying to preach to me something like that. How unlikely. Very sussy baka of you, for real. I don't believe it. But I like that that's like add some depth to the story in that regard. And it's not that she's just handing coochie out left and right for no reason, probably trauma response. Uh, Sad to see it. Uh, and I also think the psychological torment done to Sydney based on her mom in this movie, like the whole like Sydney and like her in a fucking like body bag and walking around and him with the voice changer telling her how like she's shitty and how the mom is shitty and just a lot going on right there. And I just enjoy that aspect of the film. Is the whole like secret brother trope played out? Maybe. I don't know. But I enjoyed it for this film at least. And I also like when like Roman is getting shot a shit ton by Dewey at the end and they're just like Dewey, the head, and he's like, oh yeah. I don't know. I think there's a lot of I don't know. I just think the plot is what really captivates me in this, and I love that they still were able to bring Jamie Kennedy back. Kennedy, what the hell? Kennedy back, so he can reprise his role as Randy via like pre-recorded tapes. I think that's just a really interesting way to do it, and I love that he knew exactly what they were going to question him about and be offended. Like, hey, listen, all right, we were studying, we got, I'm just like, I enjoyed that. So yeah, but I think the original trilogy, not trilogies, was really fantastic, and it did a really good job. I feel closing a trilogy with Sydney getting Detective Kincaid, Gale and Dewey, you know, getting hitched, the door closing and then opening up to show that things are all right. Things can be put at ease. You don't have to be so jumpy anymore. I think it was a nice little send off that they had for the Scream franchise. The first go, you didn't need four, five, six. Uh, they're good movies, but I think it's one of those things where if you wouldn't have ever had the newer movies, everything would have been all right. So, especially with seeing how Gale and Dewey end up by Scream 5 and 6. It's like, damn, I was hoping for the best for these two. And then it got shat on some fierce. Anyways, that was my quick little overview of some of the reasons why I like the Scream franchise. I'm not a movie critic, I'm not a movie reviewer. I'm just a guy who likes movies. Anyways, I'm not just gonna let the video finish with me drawing. Uh, Hope you like the drawing. Give it a like if you like it. If you like watching the video and you want to see more videos of me drawing, I want to upload more things. So click the subscribe button. And yeah, hopefully I'll have more content in the future. And see you later.